Hello and welcome to your new weekly edition of This is Ibrox. It's your Rangers podcast. My name's Scott Paterson. You're very welcome. Joining me on the pod this week, usual regular This is Ibrox podder, Wullie Boyd joins us. Hi Wullie, how you doing?
Hi Scott. I'm fine. I've had my haggis, sneeps and tatties, so I'm ready to go here.
Nice, I love it. You look full.
Always.
And joining us again, back for his second appearance on the podcast, the sports journalist and engagement editor at the Scotsman, and also the chap responsible for What the Falk Podcast Graham Falk joins us. He's back. Hello Graham, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us back. I was kind of worried that it'd been a few weeks since I was last on, so I was thinking, did I leave a lasting impression?
What did I say?
Well, I mean, I'm pleased I'm back. Hopefully I'll make it a hat-trick at some point. The good news is, following this, if you don't have us back, I have got my haggis, sneeps and tatties ready to go. So a little bit different to Wullie, but they're on the way.
So listen, we've got lots to discuss tonight. I should say, before we get on to the football, that this evening's podcast is brought to you by our good friends at Triple H Mortgages, the one-stop shop for your mortgage and mortgage insurance needs. You can contact them at your next available opportunity on 01453 887 179. They're available on email, hello@hhhmortgages.com, and they're also available via all the web places, triplehmortgages.com, and on Facebook, the same. We should say, if you're going to give them a bell, be sure to mention This is Ibrox. You can refer to myself, Scott, or Wullie, or indeed Tommy, who's with us as a regular, and they will be able to sort you out with a free mortgage review. Thoroughly recommend that you give them a shout if you are at that stage, looking to move house, etc. So, gentlemen, Wullie, I'm going to come to you first at the weekend. 23 points clear now after a really, really positive performance against Ross County at Ibrox on Saturday afternoon.
No, absolutely. It was really entertaining, the full match. I don't think there were really too many negative points, but as you said, it's really good to see us win so emphatically. The first goal happened 6 minutes. I don't know the last time we kind of started a game as quick as that, to be honest. Lovely kind of cross in to Morelos for Tav. Morelos kind of wedged between two players and manages to get it back into the direction of Kent, who kind of does a kind of not quite as bizarre as Hillander's header, but it's a nice looping header for about 6 yards.
It was a real collectible from him, though. I mean, I think it's the first time I've seen him header the ball. It was, and he placed it just perfectly. The Ross County goalkeeper, who incidentally was excellent on the afternoon. Yeah, he kept it almost respectable, but it was a collector's item from Ryan Kent. There's no two ways about it.
No, absolutely. As I said, it's a kind of bizarre header, to be honest. I've not really seen many kind of look for that close in. But as you said as well, the Ross County goalkeeper, I think it was Ross Laidlaw. Yeah, he had a really good game despite the score being 5-0.
Indeed. Graham, Stephen Gerrard's been quick to speak the last couple of games, Motherwell and Aberdeen, how we have almost turned up for parts of the game. So Motherwell, we basically lost the half, and Aberdeen, there was the suggestion that we only played for an hour or so. There was no doubt that I felt that the 90 minutes, and in particular, as Wullie mentions, the very quick start at the weekend, they looked like they had got the message.
Yeah, I think so. At risk of sounding like I'm plugging something here, but I suppose I am. Obviously, I write the Rangers newsletter, and I think it was only just before the Motherwell game even, I think I'd wrote that it'd been a month of points rather than performances, shall we say. And that's not to say that Rangers have been in any way bad, but I think Rangers' levels of where they've been sort of up until probably middle of December had been, they were flying into games as they had done on Saturday, wiping the floor with teams, and it was a case of how many, not if they were going to get the win. And I think, what you touched on Aberdeen there, maybe the Hibs game as well, Motherwell, it maybe just wasn't what you classed as vintage Rangers this season. Saturday very much felt like it was, and I think Wullie touched, you can't really remember last time like Rangers started that fast. Now I'd say we started as fast last time the Hamilton game, which turned out all right, 8-0 if I remember at the time. Yeah. But it's felt like a while since we put a performance in like that, especially at the beginning, and it felt like once Aribo scored, you weren't wondering if you were going to win the game, you're wondering how many. And I think the biggest thing with the character on that is based on the fact that we'd won 15 in a row, so it sounds weird to say that we haven't been vintage because 15 in a row is not too bad. But Motherwell wasn't great. It was average at best. You would like to think we would have done better with that. However, like the St Mirren game when we lost in the Cup, and then he came into the Motherwell game. It was a tough slog, and it was very similar, that Motherwell game. Now, you could have looked at the Motherwell performance, and then once Tav misses that penalty against Ross County, you could go, "Oh, is this going to be one of those days?" And the fact that we were 3-0 up by the time we'd even considered it probably speaks of the character and the kind of, probably the drive that they had behind them to make sure that this wasn't a points over performance. This was a points and performance. And it looked a lot more like where Rangers had been prior to maybe the last month. And considering we've only dropped 2 points in that time, it looks pretty good, doesn't it?
Indeed. Wullie, Graham brings up the missed penalty from Tav. How dare he? For someone who's had such a wonderful season for Rangers, our captain and arguably our player of the year, I think we can sort of let this one almost pass into the sunset.
I think you're right. Yeah, we just need to kind of. Well, obviously it's just going to go away because the scoreline takes you away for the bad point of that. But 2 in a row he's missed now, so you hope that doesn't play in his mind. But see, just kind of taking it back a couple of stages, see the kind of the work rate off the ball of the team to put the pressure on the Ross County midfielder or defender. I think Morelos nicks in, takes it, and he's nearly going to get. Well, he's pulling the trigger, and then gets brought down. It's a clear penalty, but I don't think it'll stop Tavernier for taking the next penalty.
I think you have to say as well, it was a classic. It was a John Hughes performance from a John Hughes team type thing. I thought they were quite open. I think that was one of the reasons that it did play into our hands, because they were so open. John Hughes didn't send his team to Ibrox to sit in with that sort of standard low block that we've seen when Motherwell came to town. It was just horrendous to watch. John Hughes traditionally doesn't set up his teams to play that way, and I think, as I say, at the weekend, that worked in our favour. 2 other goals in the first half, which I think we've both covered on briefly. We've got Fosbury Phil Hallander with the head, the strangest header I think I've seen in a long time. That sort of leap, and then he moved his body, and his body was at some crazy angle when he made contact, and the effort from Joe Aribo, Wullie, just before half time was absolutely incredible.
It really was. He just made it look so easy. He was kind of going down that right hand side, and I was thinking, just drive into the box. And obviously the defenders came in. I think one's he took it around him, the others dived in, and he just slotted that right into the far corner. It was a really, really good finish. And speaking about that last week, he had a really great chance in the 18-yard box. Last week against Motherwell, he really should have done better. And that's kind of what you get with him now. He's like still a young player, still learning. He's like hot and cold. See if we just get that consistency with Joe Aribo, we're going to have a really good player, and we'll find it difficult eventually to keep hold of him.
I think Willie's absolutely right, Graham. We are experiencing with Joe Aribo perhaps some inconsistencies in his performance, but you're very aware that he is capable of doing something that just makes you sit up and take notice.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would say lucky enough to have watched Joe Aribo quite a bit when he was at Charlton. You could see he was talent-wise a step above, but just like any young kid, I think he's 21, 22. He's not at most 23. I think I could be wrong with that, but he's still young in terms of playing at the level he's playing at the moment. Charlton's a little bit different to Rangers. No offense to Charlton in League One, but Aribo was capable of something that just opens a defence. I think I'll go back to that Motherwell game. I don't think he started that game. He came on at half time. I think it was I want to say it was Hadji, but I could be wrong. And just having him on that pitch was just another option to just unlock the defence. And I don't think, as talented as a squad that we have, that there's that many players like Aribo who can just do something out of nothing. And you need a player like that. You need a player like that in the season, because there will be games where you'll need Aribo to do something like that, and he might frustrate you for 2 or 3 weeks. And then you'll do something in a game where you think, well, we need a goal here, we need a spark from somewhere. And you can just bring that. And I don't think there's many players in Rangers squad that has probably the ability to do that, which is no detriment to the rest of the squad. He is that good when he's on form. I think just be patient with him. I think he will continue to get better. And like Wullie says, you don't get too much better, because we might struggle to hold on to him if he does.
Rangers TV had a camera angle from the Bill Struth main stand, so the opposite view from what you're used to seeing at Ibrox, and it was incredible. I don't want to say swaz because it's very Jamie Redknappy, Wullie, but the bend he put on the ball to make sure that the Ross County goalkeeper Ross Laidlaw was getting absolutely nowhere near it. It really was a wonderful effort. It's one of these goals that almost because it's happened up here, you just kind of you talk about it for a wee while. But if it happened in Spain or down south in the Premiership, they'd be talking about it and they'd lord over it for days.
No, absolutely. I think they would. Actually, I don't know if I've seen an angle going. The goalkeeper actually gets a couple of fingers to it.
Yeah,
it doesn't really obviously alter the direction. He's obviously got a good bit of strength behind the kick. But see, just talking about like Joe Rebo again, like, and you're wanting somebody to give you that bit of magic. I think he came off the bench against Braga, like just about 11 months ago, and he totally kind of transformed that game. And then obviously his goal, it was
amazing, of course,
superb, you know, and that's what you get with him. And if we had the complete play, like I said, we'd probably not have him in our squad, to be honest, because he could potentially get to a really good level.
Graham, we've spoke about the importance of Ryan Jack not being in the team for pretty much the best part of across Christmas and New Year and the best part of January. And I think when we seen him come off the bench at the weekend, we saw how important he was, and he scored a really, really good team goal to make it 4-0 Rangers, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I think Gerrard kind of waxed lyrical about it already, but I think the thing you can see with Ryan Jack is, I feel like it's a player, and I think Gerrard concentrates more on, but you can see that as soon as he came in the door, he's kind of grabbed hold of Ryan Jack, hasn't he? And kind of seen how important he is. And I think when you do that and a player goes out for as long as he has, naturally, sometimes it can be a little bit of a drop. And Rangers have a great midfield. I think Glenn Kamara is superb, but Ryan Jack and what he does is just so important. It's like, at risk of maybe loading him too much, but when you take Jordan Henderson out of Liverpool's midfield, you see a huge difference.
Yeah.
And maybe not to the same impact, but you do see a difference when Ryan Jack's not there. Not because he's the best midfielder in the team. I think that's like Kamara, if I'm honest, but the role that he plays is just so important, and there's not a great deal of players at Rangers that are like him and do that job as well as him. There's people that can come in and fill in, but they're not as good as Ryan Jack is at that role because he's honed that position, hasn't he? And what he does on a match day. What I was most impressed with Ryan Jack was how fresh he looked. I mean, he could have had 2 with that second chance, which was kind of, he made himself. He's been out for, I think it's 13, 14 games. He's got no right to come back and look as fresh as he did. It's not really fair. It makes me feel a bit lazy that I've just been kind of running occasionally, but he's obviously been chomping at the bit to get back in. I think everyone's happy to see him back on the pitch. And you know, if he came on and just sort of done a couple of decent passes, kept the team ticking over by the time he came on, you'd say, fair, that's all you want. Just get some 20, 30 minutes in his legs. But when he came on, he looked like he'd never really been away. And that can only be a positive when you're 23 points clear and you've got your best players coming back into the squad.
Absolutely. Well, it was a lefty as well, which I think Ryan Jack has been on his own sort of social media and shown a wee bit of shock himself. It really was. I think when you look back at it again, from Zungu starts it all with a fancy wee pirouette, and actually when you look at the camera angle again, sort of for the Govan looking down onto the match, Jack's involved in all the key parts of the pitch. He's kind of involved in the first third, he's involved in the centre third, and of course his finish at the end. It really was a really clever team goal to see at Ibrox, wasn't it?
Absolutely, and only a couple of weeks ago, was it 22 passes? I can't remember the team, so it's totally...
We did score. No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
22 passes, so it's not the first time we've seen the team hold on to the ball that long and be that cool and calm under pressure, you know, because we were getting press and stuff. We were finding the kind of the areas to put the ball back into, and as you said, you know, Jack was kind of pivotal coming up the park with the ball.
Yeah,
I think Zungo played a big part in the goal. I didn't notice it till I watched it back, but he got involved, as you said. He'd done that wee kind of pirouette type thing to get the move kind of really started, and he was kind of interchanging with a couple of players for that moment. I just want to add before we move on, just see before half time, I don't know if any of you noticed it, but Vigers kind of had a wee sly kind of kick out and stuff at Morelos, and Morelos kind of kept his cool really well. And I think that's something that we've seen a lot from Morelos this season. He's been provoked quite a few times. Yeah. I think he's only really bit the kind of ones, up at Tannadice. But if he keeps his head, we've obviously we need a couple more goals, like we were saying a couple of weeks ago. But I just thought that we should have highlighted that as well.
I think as well the good, and we'll come to sort of transfers very shortly. But we do, fingers crossed, touches wood. We're about to get through another transfer window without losing Alfredo Morelos, which I don't think should be underestimated at all. Graham, Connor Goldson pops up with his 8th goal of the season. Just remarkable for a centre half, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the Rangers Twitter account themselves said 5 goals, 5 different scorers. But it's been like that a lot across the team. I mean, we're talking about Goldson. Goldson's been great. Goldson's been superb all season. He's one of the first names on the team sheet, and there's no surprise why. If he can pop up with 8 goals at the other end of the pitch, we're talking about not losing Morelos. But the beauty of it is, if we did lose Morelos, there's plenty of goals in that team, not just up front, where there maybe wouldn't have been previously. So what would have been a disaster if Morelos went a couple of years ago, maybe even last year, it's now kind of, you could probably replace him. You'd want to replace him, but you could maybe live with it because the likes of Hadji can get in with a goal. Ryan Jack, you've got Aribo scoring goals there. You've got Tav on a ridiculous amount of goals for a right back. Barisic chips in with a decent few. You're basically only missing, McGregor, not like notching one in towards the end of the season, or John McLaughlin. But there's time yet. You never know.
It happen, yeah. As you say, you never know. I think I saw a stat just earlier on this morning actually, and it was I was referring to the assists, and in particular focused in on Borna Barisic and Yanis Hadji, Graham. Both are on and around, and I don't have it in front of me, so I apologise if the numbers are wrong. I think it was 12 and 13 assists, respectively. Graham, we were speaking off air, and considering how little football Hadji played perhaps up to the beginning of December, what a record that is.
It's quite scary, isn't it? Because I thought, well, they've got that wrong, and I double-checked it, and apparently it's correct. I mean, Barisic is the amount of balls he chucks in per game, him and Tav, like that's probably in a wonderful way not unexpected. But Hadji, I thought, well, I can't think how many games he started, maybe 9 or 10 as a maximum, maybe not even that, maybe less. So for him to be on 12, 13 assists, I said a few weeks ago, I didn't think Hadji had yet fulfilled the promise that he'd shown last season. I think based on the statistic, maybe egg on my face, maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe he's having a tremendous season and he's been good since day one. So, but yeah, I mean, talking about goals, assists, they're right across the pitch, aren't they? I think people do focus an awful lot on Barisic and Tav and what they bring, and rightly so. They are quite eye-catching players considering their fullbacks. Then you've got the likes of Scott Yarfield, who unfortunately injured at the moment, but he chips in. You've got the forwards who all chip in. They won goals. You've got Roof, you've got Morelos. You look at, but when you're looking at like Hadji, he chips in with goals as well, and he's getting that many assists, goals, and there's goals all over the pitch. It's quite worrying how good Rangers are, because you think, where's it going to go wrong at some point after the past few years? But I don't think it's going to. A lot more confident than I am, I think. But it is getting to the point now where you think, like how good can this team be? It's not just maybe about winning this title. Like how good can it be? Because Gerrard doesn't seem to want to stop adding to the squad. So obviously he doesn't think it's any finished project. And when you've got players on 13 assists that you're surprised it even had 13 starts. Yeah. He's doing something right, and the team's doing something right, aren't they?
Wullie, when we started doing the pods just out of Christmas and New Year, we were yourself, Tommy, and I were quite wary of January. Tommy often refers to the scar tissue of the previous seasons, which I think is absolutely right. We've one game to go in January on Wednesday, which we'll cover a little bit later on in the pod. We've really took January in our stride. We've been good as far as picking up points is concerned. The performances have been a bit up or down. I think we've kind of spoke about how I think we agree that Saturday was probably our best performance of the month so far. However, January has just about came and gone, and we've got through it relatively unscathed.
Yeah, absolutely. As you were saying there, the performances. We were speaking about it ourselves last week and over the past couple of weeks about how really important it was to not have a midweek fixture like we had through December and really to the run-up to now, really, where we were always playing or thinking about going on a plane or whatever to a game, a European game. We always had that, that fixture right in the middle, and well, now I think we're seeing the benefits where we've kind of managed to rest a bit. Yeah, our results weren't, superb off through these past couple of weeks with the drop points at Motherwell, but I mean, I think it's been really beneficial, and the team looked really fresh, I felt, on Saturday, and I'm really looking forward to Wednesday now, to be honest. I hope we go there and really give them a big doing, because I'm just like that. I'm a bit like that.
You're nasty that way.
A wee bit, aye.
Graham, so I think it's fair to say that if we do go on and win the league, and we've only 9 games to win to do that, Steven Gerrard will be lauded the length and breadth of the country. I don't care what anyone says. I think there will be an outpouring of emotion that has never been seen in our game for a long, long time. Steven Gerrard will, I think, be quite shocked at the reaction it gets. It's going to be a huge, huge party for days and days and days.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. I think, obviously, as you can tell by my accent, I'm not from Govan. And I've always, since I was young, my first shirt I ever had was Rangers, and I've always had an affiliation with, but I don't think even I understood how big it was. And I knew it was big until I was here like a decade ago. And I think any Englishman that comes up, anyone that comes over from Europe, look at the list of players, we could probably name 7-8 players off the top of our heads that have come from wherever in the world and just have it turned into Rangers fans, and diehard Rangers fans. Look at the likes of Jorg Alberts, that's all they tweet about. Lovenkrands sounds more Scottish than the majority of my family these days. And I think Gerrard will end up getting like that. And I think there was a question, I can't remember where I heard it the other day, by how much more does Gerrard have to do before people in England start looking at him? I think in a sense, the best part about that is that it is probably people who are ignorant in England, and Premier League fans occasionally, I'm not saying all of them, some of them, that will be quite ignorant and call it a pub league and all that kind of stuff, and thankfully they might not think it's that big of an achievement, but people in Scotland and people especially in Glasgow know how big of an achievement that is, because I'll refer back to a couple of tweets I've seen during the week, and it was put as tongue-in-cheek, but I've tried to remember the time that they were posted and how I felt as someone who followed Rangers. And it was about Celtic winning 20 in a row because they were that dominant. And I think I even looked back through a few of my tweets from a few years ago and said, I'm getting annoyed with the old firms because the difference between the sides is so huge. The gulf was so massive, and it felt like Celtic had all this money and they had all these young prospects coming through. And the fact that he's managed to turn the tables as quick as he has, and I know it's not been overnight, but it's not been a decade or anything like that. He's done a magnificent job. He's done a really magnificent job because he's made sure his recruitment's correct. He's made sure that his style of play is correct. He's made sure that a lot of the time he's trying to keep his emotion maybe under wraps. Yeah, there's that one incident at Parkhead, but we'll let him off for that because that was a quite a good day, shall we say.
Yeah, well, I think we all done that day, did we not? I think everyone. Yeah. I feel he really, really unfairly has that sort of as a noose around him almost. However, it was something that I think every Rangers fan in the country done that day. I know I certainly did.
Yeah, no, I have absolutely 100% did. I think if I remember correctly, I was coming back on a train from Dumfries, going back down to England as I was at the time, lo and behold. And I remember, I think the majority of the train heard when Ryan Kent scored, which is quite nice. But yeah, I think, looking back to that specific day, we all remember that outpouring of emotion. And I suppose that's another benefit towards Gerrard. I think when, the 2 games we beat Celtic this year, it's been a quick fist pumping down the tunnel. I think he probably learns from the fact that I've won nothing yet. And I think that's probably gone throughout the squad. Yeah. I think it's gone throughout the fan base. No one's saying I've won anything yet. But in reality, we're 23 points clear. Like, how catastrophic of a fall would it need to be? I don't think anyone's ever seen it before, but I'm touching wood. I don't want to say anything just as yet.
You just don't want to think about jinxing it. I think that's absolutely the way of it, and we're all in the same boat. Wullie, pre-contracts, we have managed to, well, I think this week, We may see some movement. Of course, it's the end of January where the deadline window slams shut. And today we've managed to confirm the sort of pre-contract agreement with Aberdeen for Scott Wright. Relatively decent signing, I would say. Very low risk. I think we spoke about this last week, that he wouldn't offer any risk at all bringing him in. As far as the sort of nationality coefficient information for Europe as well, I think it's a relatively decent signing to bring in the summer.
Yeah, it definitely is, and it's one that's going to bolster, like I said a couple of weeks ago, it's going to bolster our European squad, because we've not really, I think it's like 25 players you can register, and we've not met that over the past couple of seasons because we don't have, the Scottish players really to come and fill these spaces. So we've had to go into Europe with like 22, 23 players, I think it is, in most occasions. So we're kind of, not carrying the biggest squad in terms of Europe. So hopefully that starts to give us a bit more of a kind of boost there, and maybe a couple of youngsters will fill these spaces as well. But I mean, I'm not really too sure how good this boy's going to be. But when Derek Johnson was on, I did say that I think a position I would like us to strengthen in was kind of in the wide areas, and I believe that's where he plays. So he's going to come and probably challenge Kent, Hadji, depending on what happens in the future. I think he's just going to sit and possibly take over that Brendan Barker role, and Jordan Jones once he probably goes out the door.
I think the thing that gets me about the Scott Wright signing, Graham, is he brings a versatility that a lot of the recent signings have proven. So you have guys like Roof who can play either side up front or a 10. You've got Kent who can play either side or a 10. Scott Wright strikes me as being a really similar option for Steven Gerrard moving forward from next season.
I think he's quite an interesting signing because I always like to be honest with my assessment of players, and obviously I hope I'm wrong, but when I've seen him, nothing's jumped out. Yeah. If I'm completely honest. But he's very low risk. If it doesn't work out, it's fine. I think he's a very similar signing to Jordan Jones. Yeah. Who I think the signing of Scott Wright probably signals the end for Jordan Jones, which is a bit sad, really, for Jordan Jones, because obviously I think he's probably a better player than what he's shown. But at the end of the day, you can't sit and wait for players to turn into the player you thought you were going to sign. And this boy's obviously, I think a few Aberdeen fans are saying he's not that great now, but a few weeks ago they were. I think that's just the way the world, and it's obviously football's very tribal. I'd be interested to see if he does end up coming permanently by the end of the transfer window, kind of a la Glenn Kamara, that situation. And I'm also quite interested in, I'm saying it's risk-free, and I believe that's because he'll be a free transfer. I think, I could be wrong with this, but I thought the rules were something to do with where you had to be under 24 and under, you got a tribunal fee. Apparently that's not correct with Scott Wright. Apparently it will be completely free. Right. Hence why there's a conversation surrounding, could they pay $350,000 to get him earlier? Okay. I suppose the benefit of paying that extra money is we probably don't need him now. He's probably more required for next season, like Wullie says, and adding to the squad. I don't think he's going to be first team, but I think you want to have a good squad. At risk of putting any criticism on the current squad, I don't really rate Brandon Barker too highly. I don't think he's the worst player on the planet. So if he's an improvement on him, and you can get a little bit of money in for Brandon Barker at the end of the season, or maybe even Jordan Jones, then you're turning a profit and actually improving your squad. So therefore, it should be, in theory, a clever signing at the very least, and hopefully even more.
Wullie also heavily linked this week, two guys from Bournemouth. Josh Simpson, who is a defender who I think can play just about everywhere along the sort of back line, more comfortable as a centre half, and also Namdi Ofabor, who we from what we understand at this stage is a kind of defensive mid. However, I was reading some quotes from the former Aberdeen player Jack Grimmer this afternoon, and he refers to him as a really tidy player who can zip a pass in around the pitch. And from the pictures you see of Ofabor, he is one big unit of a boy. He'll be another handy addition to a team that will hopefully be competing in the Champions League next season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's made a couple of appearances for Bournemouth this season as well.
Yep.
And just touching on Jack Simpson, it like strikes me. I mean, I remember a couple of transfer windows ago, Gerrard was saying about the back line. He likes two defenders that can play on the left side and on the right side. I believe he's left-footed, so he'll probably come in as that left centre back.
Yeah.
They probably play in there, but as you said, they can play pretty much across the back line pretty comfortably. He's a big boy as well, 6'3" or something, I think it is. Yes. So, he's going to be a handful. And talking about Jordan Jones leaving, I think that'll probably see the end of Edmondson in that case. And as you're saying, this boy Offaboa seems to be kind of highly rated. And I just need to wait and see what happens. But I think it probably means that we're not going to take up the deal on Zungu at the end of the season. Yeah. That's what strikes me about it.
Graham, there's something that's sort of saying to me, if we're bringing in Simpson in whatever manner, maybe suggests that he'll be one of maybe 4 centre halves for next season. I wonder if Katic will be put out on loan for 6 months to try and just get himself together, get game time, because I don't think you'll see him before the end of the season, frankly. I just wonder if there's maybe a loan move in the making for him for next year, particularly if they manage to secure Liam Balogun for another season.
I think you need to get Katic's fitness back up. It's been months and months now. I don't even remember how long, but it's been a while. It's not gone on for at least 6 months, and no football for 6 months is a lot of football to miss. Yeah. He's got the biggest arms I've ever seen in my life, so he's definitely doing work in the gym. I noticed that the other day, and I know that Katic is he's very focused on improving his game, and he'll keep going at stuff and trying to work on things. And I don't think Gerrard will get rid of him completely, but I think he'll be looking now as the main 3 centre halves: Balogun, Goldson, Elanda. They'll be his main 3. He'll want to add to it, but then Katic will be wanting to get in the team. He probably isn't going to be able to give him first team football, but probably doesn't want to give up on him completely, because he's only out the team probably because of an injury. So loan move. But I think it will probably be a loan move somewhere outside of the UK. I don't know, somewhere like France, somewhere where you can get regular first team football, build his fitness back up, and then maybe bring him back in the January end of the season and say, look, say Simpson, has he done enough to remain part of the squad come the end of next season? And we're thinking very much far in the future. If he has, can you then make a deal for Katic to go, or do you then bring Katic back in because he's had a really good season? It's a nice situation to be in. It's a really lovely headache to have. But I really like Katic. And talking of Simpson, I've watched him once or twice. I don't know why, but Bournemouth have been on the TV a few times this season, and I've just randomly had nothing else to do because there's this lockdown thing going on, if you of us may have noticed. And Wullie's absolutely right. I think from what I've seen, he's a left footer, and he's quite confident to bring the ball out. He reminds me more of probably in the mould of Goldson in some senses, apart from the fact that Goldson's, I think, plays on the right. So he could be like competition for Balogun and something like that. And he's a young age. I think Bournemouth, as much as they haven't done very well the past few seasons, I think they've brought through a few good young players over the past couple of years. So it wouldn't surprise me if he ended up being one of those players that, a bit like Calvin Bassey, that can sort of add to the squad and then gradually become first team players. I know Eddie Howe speaks of him very highly, which I know is, some people rate him, some people don't. I think it's fair to say he did a relatively decent job at Bournemouth, and I know he speaks very highly of him, said he's got huge potential, but he needs to play first team football about 6 to 8 months ago, I think, before he left Bournemouth. So obviously he's rated at Bournemouth. It's maybe just not worked out the way it should. I think the signing of the other boy in the middle is quite interesting, because I think if Rangers are strong in one particular position, it's in the middle, but I think he's 21, something along that line.
Yeah, yes,
So at the same time, the good thing about Gerrard, I think he looks through a team, and when he makes a signing, I think he makes 2 different kinds of signings sometimes. I think he makes a squad signing, which tends to be young, that can grow into the squad, which is always beneficial, because if they don't reach the potential or show any kind of level of quality that he thinks is required, I think naturally they'll just go off, and you'll still get money out of them. You can still make money on those players because they're young, and you bring them in on frees or near enough frees. Whereas I think with this boy, as much as I find it unusual that I'd want a midfielder, I have seen him compared to Glenn Kamara. Now, if you get a big injury, i.e. Ryan Jack, and another big injury, which does sometimes happen, you've got almost a ready-made replacement there who's young and got something to prove. And I think when you sign a young player, especially if you sign a young player that comes to Rangers, you always get someone who's very hungry and always want to improve. I want to impress Steven Gerrard. I've seen the Sunderland, obviously, as people know, I'm a Sunderland fan. When I watched Sunderland under Roy Keane, the amount of young boys that came in and wanted to impress Roy Keane, Steven Gerrard has the same sort of aura. So there'll be young lads with potential that will want to come to Rangers and be like, right, I'm going to make a name for myself here. And if they don't, they've all got resale value. So it makes total sense, both of them. You've just got to hope that they're going to be better than just fringe players immediately, because that's kind of what you want, isn't it? But if they're not, then it's no great loss. They're still going to add to the squad.
See, just while we're talking on this, sorry to butt in, Scott, but
it's okay, mate.
It's just a wee short one. I just wonder if Jermaine Defoe's had any sort of influence in these two boys, maybe drop the seeds in people's heads, you know. I know we've got a scouting team and stuff, but obviously Defoe was there not too long ago, so...
I actually think on offer ball, I wonder about the influence of Joe Aribo. I think, again, without having anything to confirm, but I think he's been capped at under 19 level from Nigeria. So you just wonder if there's a possible connection there. Wullie, I'll stay with you. It's not all been sort of rumour or confirmed deals coming into the club. Glenn Middleton has left on loan to St Johnstone for the season, which I think is a really good move for him at this stage in his career.
No, absolutely, and I think he'll get first team football to go and play there as well. So he's 21 now, still early 20s. A lot of development there. I mean, when was it Gerrard's first season, he played quite a big role, and then just slowly he drifted out of things. I don't know if maybe the quality level that Gerrard wanted was obviously raising, and whether he's maybe going to have a future here, who knows. But hopefully he goes and has a good 6 months and then comes back pre-season ready to go, and hopefully get a bit of confidence for that. Because I believe, I think they were talking about him wanting to be that kind of left winger now.
Yeah.
Like a kind of left fullback, like kind of playing Barisic's role. I don't know how suited he'll be to that role, but hopefully it all works out.
Graham, Middleton went to Hibs for a loan period. At the time, there was discussions over he had the option to go to Holland and play for a season, or he had the opportunity to go and play for Paul Heckingbottom at the time at Hibs. And that move seemed to be something of a stunt in his career, if you like. It just kind of stopped everything for a good 18 months or so for Glenn Middleton.
I'm not sure if Hibs was the right move for him, because contrary to popular belief, I think Hibs are a big club. And no disrespect to St Johnstone, but I think they are a bigger club with bigger expectations, hence why there's a lot of outcry this week that they got beat for the third semi-final in a row. I think Hibs fans think they can do better than that, and they're more than entitled to say that. I think they're a big club with good ambitions who've been managed quite well over the past few years, and are probably not doing as well as they maybe could in cup competitions and things. So when Glenn Middleton goes to a club like Hibs, they want him to be hitting the ground running. I don't think he's at that stage yet to hit the ground running in a side that's got ambitions like Hibs. I think somewhere like St Johnstone, who will probably allow him to kind of flourish a little bit, allow him to make a couple of mistakes. It's maybe going to help them the fact that no fans are there. I know that sounds a bit weird because it's the worst thing, but if there are any expectations of bringing in a player from Rangers who's been highly rated, still 21, starting to blossom into the player that he could potentially be, he's not going to hear people shouting at him from the TV if he does make any mistakes. So it's probably extra beneficial for him with that as well. But I definitely think there's a player in Glenn Middleton. Do I think it's at Rangers? I don't know, because I think as much as he's growing, so are Rangers, which is probably not beneficial for him. But I definitely think there's a player in there that can do well in the higher echelon to the Scottish League, and maybe somewhere in the Championship in England as well. But I think for him personally, taking Rangers out of it completely, I think St Johnstone's a really good move for him. It'll give him a chance to get games. He's not going to be at a club that's got as much pressure as, say, the likes of Hibs or maybe even Hearts, somewhere like that. St Johnstone allow him just to mature as a player and play his game and play the game as he wants to play it. And hopefully he'll come back a better player, and you'll be able to sell him on for a good amount of money, be able to enjoy his career and go further on, or he can become part of the squad and, you know, push the likes of potentially Scott Wright, and if Jordan Jones is here, to be that kind of player that's edging to get in the team in the wing spots, or maybe even further back if they want them to do that as well.
Well, I want to speak about two other guys. One who is still at Ibrox, and as of today, Monday, we record on the Monday, as everyone knows, Nathan Patterson has signed an extension to his contract until 2024. Huge buy-in from the club on this boy, and he came onto the park on Saturday for Tav and got 20-25 minutes and looked really comfortable. Again, he looks like he could be the next gem to come out of the training centre.
Yeah, totally agree. I think just think back to about a year ago, was it against Tenure, he made his debut, and you could see then he was a bit slightly nervous. Whether that was something to do with the crowd or not, who knows? But on Saturday, just past, he came on in full of confidence, coming up and down the wing like Tavernier does. There's a lot of likenesses between the two of the players. So, I mean, I think he's a ready-made replacement, and a lot of people are kind of questioning whether to maybe put him out on loan. Yeah. But I think on being in amongst that environment with the first team and they're all pushing for this title, I think that's going to, set him up to have a real good career at Rangers if that's where he's wanting to remain. It's all down to him at the end of the day.
As well, he's one of these sort of boys that is living the dream. I seen footage of him on the internet today of him leaving the stadium after the game on well, I assume it was after the game, maybe going in actually, and he's quite excitable as he was walking away from the camera. He looked quite pleased with himself, as he should do. Graham, I want to come and speak to you about someone else who has recently signed a contract and was moved out on loan to Raith Rovers. And we're talking about Kai Kennedy here, of course, who we've spoke about on the pod before for a variety of different reasons. Got man of the match on his Raith debut at the weekend against Hearts in a quite an emphatic Raith victory at Tynecastle at the weekend. Kennedy at the centre for two of Raith's goals, where he really sort of makes a midden of Michael Smith at Hearts right back, and then Craig Halkett shortly after. Looks very, very technically very, very sound, and could be someone we could see a bit more of next season at Ibrox, I think.
Yeah, I think he's had a little taste of first team football, been on the bench a few times. Probably one of those players that is not going to be in and around the first team enough at this stage in his career to warrant keeping him at Ibrox. So again, a club like Raith Rovers is probably perfect for him. Again, I don't want to insult anyone, but Raith, probably not huge expectations. They used to bring in players on loan and developing. A lot of clubs in the Championship are. And he's probably seen that game against Hearts as the chance for him to kind of like, yeah, this is who I am sort of thing. And so, sometimes players will in that kind of level of pressure, even in that level, because Hearts, again, big club. Hearts are a huge club. And to go there and dominate the game, get man of the match for a side that's not fancied to win there. I mean, in the Scottish Championship especially, Hearts are absolutely no mugs, and they've got a lot of good, experienced players. They've got a manager there that just won the league with Dundee United.
Yep.
For him to come out of that game as the best player on the park, when you've got the likes of, I mean, I didn't see through the full Hearts squad, but you talked there about Smith, Northern Ireland International, obviously been in and around some great players, learned from some great players. He's pretty much been one of Hearts' better players. You've got the likes of Kingsley. Obviously, he's there as well. He's doing great as well for Hearts. There's been a lot of players that have, I wouldn't say turned Hearts' fortunes around, because I think they expect to win the league.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of discontent because of the fact they got relegated. It's the second time in a decade or so. They're starting to turn things around. They're not losing many games. They're not maybe winning the league at a canter, but they're expected to win their home games quite comfortably against the likes of Raith Rovers. And from what I've seen, which wasn't the full game, I must be honest, but from what I've seen of the highlights, to be completely honest with you, it looks like he won the game for them in parts, and it's not surprising to see him come off with man of the match. So it only speaks volumes, and I think the good thing with the likes of Patterson, the likes of Kennedy coming through, you spoke before about the next gem to come through. For me, Rangers in the past, say, 5-6 years haven't brought through enough gems. I think more need to come through. I think a lot of the time from an academy level, they may be looking to bring in a player like a Billy Gilmore who they can maybe make profit on. I think Rangers fans want to see Nathan Patterson in the team. I think fans want to see the likes of Kai Kennedy in the team. They want to see who doesn't want to see a Rangers fan in a Rangers team, in a winning Rangers team. Agreed. Everybody wants that. So it's great to see the likes of Patterson and Kennedy doing well, and especially with Patterson getting a contract and the likes of Patterson coming in. And as Wullie touched on before, you would trust him if Hibernian got an injury to play there right back, wouldn't you? You trust that?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
You wouldn't say, oh, we need another signing or anything like that. And that speaks absolute volumes for him. But it's great to see Rangers putting players from the academy in the first team rather than someone else's, like Billy Gilmore. That's what should be happening. That's what people have wanted for a long time. And I think the fact that you've got two players that could potentially add to the first team this season and Kennedy maybe next season and maybe more on top of that, that's perfect. That's what you wanted a football club, and that's what I think Rangers have done for decades. Have brought players through the academy that can add to a first-team squad alongside, in the 90s, world-class players. And that's where I think Gerrard will want to be going, as much as you all want to have, the Brazil of the 70s across the front of the back. It's nice to have a few local lads in there as well, because it's a sense of pride as a fan. At the end of the day, you want to see somebody who is a fan just like you playing on the pitch. And that video you touched on before is fantastic. Everyone wants to see like a fan playing for the club that he loves and celebrating like that after a game.
I think you're absolutely right. There's from the Nathan Patterson footage that I've seen, there's an instant association with it. As a Rangers fan, when you watch it and you see how chuffed he is with himself, and that you're feeling exactly as chuffed as what he is, there's an association with his reaction. You know exactly why he's so pleased, and as are we. Listen, it's a good time to be a Rangers fan just now. Steven Gerrard had his 150th game as manager at the weekend. 926 days it's taken him to get there. 1 day sharper than Dick Advocat, I think it was. Wullie, I'll come to you first. The only thing that's missing from his tenure, and he'll know this as well as anyone, is that silverware, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And if I was going to sit here and say there hasn't been times when I've been like, should he be the manager? Should they know? I'd be a liar, because we've all kind of doubted it at certain points. But the board have backed him. They've seen something. We've all seen the gradual progress, and we've got into this great position we're in now.
Graham, same question to you. The silverware is the biggie for him. It clearly is. I think when you're talking about Steven Gerrard, the footballer, you instantly think about the night in Istanbul, probably the slip against Chelsea when the Liverpool's league kind of disappeared from him. As a manager, I think he'd be the first person to say there's an awareness that he hasn't done anything as a manager yet. You would hope he's 9 games shy of that right now.
Yeah, I think, again, tempting fate on I, but I'd be very surprised if Rangers didn't win the league at this point. It would be a catastrophic set of results for that not to happen. Yeah. And then you've got to hope that Celtic can start winning games again, which is touch and go at the best of times. When it comes to Gerrard, I think the thing I quite like about him, and it's kind of the same throughout. You have, winners and you have losers in football. We'll not touch on the losers, but the likes of winners are Steven Gerrard. People may disagree because of the slip and all that kind of stuff, but Gerrard, Gerrard is a winner. He always has been, or his mindset is to be a winner. That's just the way he is. And I think the best thing about him is he'll want the title, and we all desperately want that bit of silverware. We all desperately want to see someone win it. We want to see the changing of hands on what's been a very, very dominant 9 years of Celtic, unfortunately, for Rangers fans. And I think when it comes to Gerrard winning that, the best thing about him is, because of his mindset, I think he'll be going, 9 games away, we'll get that in the bag, game at a time. But I think he's also thinking about becoming that dominant team. I think he'll be thinking about having maybe not the 9 or 10 in a row and getting obsessed with that kind of stuff, but like, right, how can I build this team to make sure that when Celtic do mount to come back, because they will, of course they will. They're going to be hurting from this season. Of course they're going to be. They're hurting already. So they're going to be coming back with whoever's in charge wanting to make sure that Rangers only have 1 title in 11 years. And I think because of his mindset, he'll be thinking game to game, but he'll also be thinking about the future and going forward. And that's kind of the beauty of it. You want a manager who's not going to just win a title and then you go, oh, thank God for that. There we go. It's done. Right. Oh, what do I do next? I think he's building for the future as well. And just touching before on Patterson, the signings he's looking to bring in, the squad he's building is building what could hopefully be a dynasty. I just think the kind of man he is, the kind of manager he is, the way he speaks in interviews, the way he speaks in, I watched the Soccer Box with Gary Neville the other day, and you can see that that slip, he said, it still affects me to this day.
Yeah.
So he'll not want to let this title slip because that will affect him. But he'll also not want to sit there and think, well, I won one title, that was great. It'll grate on him if Rangers don't win the next 3 or 4. I think he can forgive himself if they lose maybe 1 in the next 5.
Yeah.
I think that's just, you've got to be realistic sometimes. But I think he'll be sitting there going, I don't want to be sitting here in 4 years' time with 1 trophy. I want to be sitting here with 4, 5, 6. He's probably still hurting about that St Mirren game, which is it's the kind of manager you want. If you've got a winner coming into your squad and as a boss or as a player, it takes everyone's standards up. And I think he's probably more frustrated than anyone that it's took the 3-4 years to get to this point. I think he probably wanted it sooner, but he want to make sure that now he's got here, he solidifies that, continues on, so no one looks back and goes, but if only. He'll want to have 4 or 5 pieces of silverware in the trophy cabinet before long.
Wullie, I think Steven Gerrard would be the first to also sort of big up the staff that are working alongside him on a daily basis. The McAllisters, Beals, Tom Culshaw, Jordan Milsom, they're in there as well. They're in with the bricks now. They get one term that's used a lot when people come to either play for Rangers or when managers come. They get it. They understand it. They appreciate the size of the club. I think that they absolutely do get it, and they do expect huge fireworks when we eventually do sort of win the league this year.
Yeah, I just don't think they quite understand the severity of these fireworks might be. It's going to be huge. It's going to be absolutely huge. It's going to be carnage, to be honest. But as you're saying, I just believe that the full management team, they fully bought into everything. They understand the fans' expectations. They knew the past couple of years haven't they been good enough, for a club of our stature and size, and obviously them getting the back and having the time, wee bit of patience, maybe not all the time, but we're nearly there. We've got that one hand just reaching out to grab it now.
Absolutely.
I'll go on record saying that, but it's a good feeling. It's good slowly strangling the opposition for a change.
Rangers TV done a video at the weekend, and it was a lot of the MyGers youngsters congratulating Steven Gerrard on getting to 150 games, and right at the end of it, I thought there was a really nice touch by Rangers TV where they got Walter Smith to come on and do a wee bit for Steven Gerrard, Graham. I think it's a huge testament to Steven Gerrard and the fact that they're getting our most recent successful manager to come on and congratulate Steven on the way he's putting himself across, the general expectancy that Gerrard now is aware of being the Rangers manager.
Yeah, I seen the video. I thought it was great. Sat and watched it, and I don't know if she had anything to do with it, but obviously I know a few of the guys from the Rangers media team, and I think they've been great this season with putting together stuff
Absolutely.
Like that. And sounds a bit biased because obviously some of them are my friends, but I think they have done a really good job. And even with the Rangers women's stuff, who are also top of the league, by the way, in case anyone didn't know that.
Absolutely.
Of course, keeping in with tradition, they've been just great with stuff like that. And I think I work in a little bit of media as well, and sometimes it's difficult to come up with stuff. It's really difficult to come up with stuff. And it was a great idea, but the way obviously it ended, like you say, with Walter Smith was just perfect. And it probably speaks volumes as to how well he's done this season. I think it's probably been a bit understated, maybe because of who he is, how big the job is. I think a lot of my friends down in England go, "Oh, well, did you not just expect that?" And it's like, you have no idea like how far apart both sides were. Like you really have no idea how far apart they both were up until really, really recently. And the mentality side of it as well was also different. But again, just to touch on what I said before, I think Gerrard will look at that, have a wry smile, and then go, yeah, but I need to make sure that I'm matching what he won or getting somewhere close to before I get classed as anywhere near a very good Rangers manager, which again is a great position to be in, isn't it?
Indeed. Wullie, just on the 150 games, I saw a stat at the weekend, and I think everyone appreciates that Steven Gerrard almost has his lieutenants, if you like, on the pitch, his go-to guys, the guys that he relies on. And I've picked out 5 from the 150. Don't worry, this isn't a question.
I know 3.
So of the top 5 appearances in this order, Connor Goldson's played in 141 of Steven Gerrard's 150 games. Tav has played in 138. Scott Arfield, which surprised me, has played in 126, followed by Al McGregor 125, and Morelos has played in 123 of these 150 games. He clearly has an idea, if you like, William, of a spine of his team.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all the key positions, as you said. It's a proper spine all the way up the kind of side of the park. It's incredible to kind of be like for Connor Goldson, 141 games. Yeah. Have that level of consistency, no really dropping form, to be honest, through it. He's been, really steady, and obviously you need to be sort of fortunate with injuries and stuff to avoid them, and he obviously has for the most part. But it's incredible to kind of hit the figures similar to Gerrard since he came in, and obviously keeping that core group of players and keeping them over these 3 years they've grown as players, and the players coming in to help them have got us in the position we're in now, and it's incredible to kind of keep that consistency.
Graham, as an Englishman, I want to ask you a question that we've covered on the pod before, and Tavernier, I can almost appreciate why he's not been called up for England on account of guys like Kyle Walker, Reece James, Alexander Arnold at Liverpool, who hasn't had a great season, I have to say.
Yeah,
I wonder why Connor Goldson hasn't had a call up to the England setup when you look at the centre halves that Southgate's picking just now.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I actually think Tav should have more of a look in as well, because I think Tav's been consistent since the championship season, which has been a long time. But I think, whereas you touched on it before, England's right backs are Trent Alexander on form is in the top 3 in the world, maybe on form.
100%. Yeah, I
think his technique is just a joke. Kyle Walker's been consistently good for numerous good teams in England for a while. He's capable of a brain fart, is Kyle Walker, which I think some fullbacks can be, but I can understand almost, especially with Reece James emerging, the fact that Tav is probably 27, 28. I can understand that in a way, but I'd like to see him given a chance, because I think he puts in a better delivery than probably all of them, apart from Alexander Arnold, maybe.
Yeah.
But Goldson, my honest opinion, is probably an ignorance towards the Scottish leagues. Or can he do it in the Premier League? Has he done it in the he's at Brighton, and Brighton sold him. But I think, sometimes you look at back in the 90s when I was young, and the likes of Gaza and stuff like that, no one questioned it. And I don't understand when that started changing. There's so many players that have come from the Scottish leagues to the Premier League, most of them recently Celtic, truth be told, and have not just been able to hold their own, they've been really good players. And I think Goldson could quite easily fit into a solid mid-table maximum, maybe even slightly higher team pushing for the top 7 English team based on his form since he's been at Rangers. And you look at our centre backs, likes of Michael Keane and stuff like that. They're not in the same level of quality as maybe the right backs that are keeping Tav out in the team. So I don't see why he wouldn't be given the chance. I think, the likes of John Stones has managed to be out of form for ages up until recently. Yeah. And he's always been there or thereabouts. But I think, unfortunately, as much as I do like Southgate, I think there is still a bit of an ignorance towards the Scottish League, and not just Rangers. Any decent English players that came through at Celtic, they would probably be looked at in a similar way. The likes of Alan Thompson, Steve Guppy maybe were back in the day, but centre half is a position I think we're a little bit weak, so I think he should at least be looked at. And if he doesn't do the job, fair enough, he's been given that chance. But it's a bit of a shame he hasn't even been included in the squad, or even got close to it by the sound of it.
Yeah. Graham, I'm going to stick with you. We travel to Easter Road on Wednesday night, which I think there's probably a fair argument to say, while it's the last game in January, I think it was arguably the hardest game in January. Even when you look at the games at the start of the month, that was perhaps the tie you looked at and thought, that might be a bit testing. That might be a bit of a challenge. What's your thoughts on it? Do we obviously go there and find Vettel, and we will be playing a team that did not have a great weekend at all?
No, not at all. The one thing I would say about Jack Ross, obviously him being manager at Sunderland for a while, I was unlucky enough to witness that kind of period of Sunderland's history, and he did a lot of the time. The team and him as manager, a lot of the time would, for want of a better word, bottle the big games. We lost at Wembley twice. I think we had 2 games in hand and were level on point with second going into the last 5 or 6 games of the season. Bottled that, ended up in the playoffs.
Yeah. So
there is a tendency for Jack Ross teams to do what happened on Saturday. But what Jack Ross is quite good at doing is in the next game having a reaction. I think he's quite a fiery character, and I quite like him as a man, if I'm honest with you, as much as I sound like I've just really absolutely just destroyed him. I hope he does go on to do well, because I think he's respectful, very snappy dresser, I'll give him that as well. But his performances after a big defeat tend to always be quite good ones. And I'm not talking going and winning 3-4-0, but he does have a reaction. He does manage to get his players to have a reaction to that. That said, they're in bad form. Not horrendous, but I think, I do a little bit with the Edinburgh Evening News as well, and I do a lot with Hibs. So I interact with a lot of Hibs fans, and they've been worried for a little while. It's not just been the past month or so. It's been, quite a few games now. They've been going, I'm not sure about this home form. Something not right about it. Deutsch not having the best of seasons. Nisbet, I think, has been one of the better players this season. And that's probably where you have to be careful with them. I mean, they played well against us start of the season at Easter Road, so we know it's not going to be an easy game. It wasn't an easy game at Ibrox around Christmas time. It really wasn't. So I think as long as Rangers treat the game, which I think they will, as long as they treat the game with respect, which I'm sure they will, and don't look into the bad form too much, they should come out with a win. But truth be told, and this is maybe a bit of a defeatist attitude, if it's a draw, it's not the end of the world. It's not the worst result in the world to pick up a draw at Easter Road when you're in such a commanding position. But I think Rangers will put them away. I think as much as I think Jack Ross does tend to get his sides to have a good reaction to bad results, I just think Rangers have got too much. And I think that's where Hibs are probably feeling a bit this season, and why they're currently in third, kind of fourth if Aberdeen win their games in hands. Yeah. It's a simple fact that they just don't quite have enough quality yet, and they're probably still a bit of a project at the moment, I think, with Jack Ross. If they remain patient, they might be a force to be reckoned with in a couple of years' time when they've built that team. Yeah. But I think at the moment, I think even Rangers with a couple of changes should be enough. But worst case scenario, you come away with a draw, which is going to happen in this run. You're not going to win every game. I mean, you might, but there might be one or two results along the way where you go, Hibs away, if that was one of them. Yeah, I don't want to say you'd take it, but you wouldn't be crying the next morning.
Wullie, it was the game at the start of January when I looked at the fixtures that I thought that could be the challenging one, as I said there before Graham spoke. What's your thoughts going into the game on Wednesday night? Are you confident? If you are, don't let it show.
No, I'm not confident. I always get quite nervous for these games when you're playing the Hibs, the Hearts, Dundee United even as well. I always get really nervous at these games. But I mean, when I think back in the games and how tight they usually are, there's fans there and there's bottles being thrown for the top of stands and God knows what else they're throwing towards players. But it's usually a difficult game, and I think the past couple of games it's at a draw and a win we've managed to get. So I expect another really close game, hard fought game. And I mean, we won at Ibrox just there, but I think the media thought Hibs won because Jack Ross seems to have sussed us out or something, I think they were saying. So I think we're in for a right good game. I think right hard fought game. But I think if we win this, I think you'll start seeing a few more parties socially, just with their own bubble, I hope.
You've been to a few of them, have you?
No,
don't answer that.
I haven't left my house. other for work and essential travel.
Absolutely. So, Graham, listen, I really appreciate you coming to join us on the pod again. We will make a point of getting you on for your hat-trick before the end of the season. Wullie, thanks again for joining us. Is that something like your 5th in a row or something like that, is it not?
I don't think I've been posted missing.
You're going for some
in 2021, so it's a good year so far, especially considering my absences last season. I think I'm in my final warning.
Thanks again for joining us. Really good to have you on. So we should say that this week's pod will be available in all the usual places. Wherever you get your pod, we're available on YouTube where you can subscribe to us. Please do. By all means, leave a comment, preferably one that's pleasant. I should give a special shout out to our partner for the sponsorship, Triple H Mortgages. You can reach them on 01453 887 179 via the email hello@HHH Good luck to Rangers on Wednesday. Trip to Easter Road is never easy, but we do hope that they gain another 3 points. We return next week. It'll be Wullie and I, perhaps someone else. We'll maybe try and squeeze Tommy in. Make sure you join us if you can. Have a good week. Bye-bye.
It's raging, I'm shaking. You wanna go out, I wanna stay in. Why?